Hello, Happy New Year, and welcome to this Fireside Chat with Kathleen, Devaney, and Baum, the Hill's Head of School and Associate Head of School. I'm Wallace Gundy, a very proud member of the class of 2004 and president of the Alumni Association of the Hill School, and I'm thrilled to be with you both today to help share with our alumni a bit about each of you and the incredible things happening on campus under your leadership. Now, Kathleen, this is not our first rodeo. We, just over a year ago, were sitting in this room with a similar fireside chat for our alumni. And it was as you embarked on your first year as our head of school. Does that feel like, yesterday, or does that feel like a lifetime ago?
It's probably a little bit of both. It was a great first year. There were so many things that happened. There were hard parts of it. Difficult parts for our community, but it was just incredible. My husband and I felt wonderfully welcomed, but in many ways it was also, as I would say, being a third former. And so if that's the case, then this is the fourth form year. And so as a sophomore, as my second year, it's been as good as the first. And it's been a piece where we are now, my husband and I now feel a part of the story. Not just being welcomed into the story, and we couldn't be happier or prouder to be a part of this community.
Oh, that's great to hear, and we're thrilled to have you. Now, this past summer, you appointed Baum as the Hill's Associate Head of School.
Yeah.
Ari has served on the faculty since 2012, most recently as Assistant Head and Dean of Students. And Ari has also been the Carl Noblack Instructor of Economics. In 2020, was selected for the John Woodward Master Teacher Award. He's been the head girls ice hockey coach since his arrival, and previously served as dorm parent in Wendell and Upper School West dormitories for 9 years. Ari, you live on campus with your wife, Jenny, who I believe you married last summer on campus, which is pretty incredible.
Chapel's right back there.
right back
in
there.
Yep.
Great venue. And you are both expecting your first child in March, which is thrilling. Congratulations on taking this new role. And really, I just want to reiterate, it's truly a treat to be sitting with you both amidst this 174th year of the Hill School.
Yeah.
So a year from now is 175.
Yeah.
That's a big year.
Countdown is on.
Not that 174 is not important.
Yeah.
A year from now, lots of excitement around such a milestone for the school.
Awesome. We're looking forward to it. And I know all of our alumni are. Kathleen, so, as you said, it was really not too long ago. You were sitting, you were visiting campus, I should say, as our prospective head of school.
Yeah.
You're now a self-proclaimed fourth former.
Yep.
How has your impression of the school and community evolved?
I think what I would say is that I worked really hard to involve myself in what the students are doing. Obviously, there's seated meals and there's chapels, but joining in and helping to coach the girls soccer team last year. I'm in the orchestra as a flute player. I asked to be written in as a bit part into the musicals. I think these are fun things to do, but I also think it's really important to remember what it feels like to be a student. I shadowed a sixth former. But my travels have allowed me to talk with alums of all ages, and that has been invaluable to me to understanding Hill over time. And it has allowed me to also bring sort of the outside back to Hill, which is important for the work that we do here. So I would mostly say it's my understanding of the place has just been amplified by all of those experiences. And it's a fantastic institution, and it's got an incredible legacy. And the piece of this piece that is most valuable are its people, both its alums, its students, and its faculty. And that is probably any school, but most so at the Hill School.
Is there anything you know now that you wish you had known then?
How important the Eagles were to people at the Hill School and in Philadelphia. No, I don't know that there's anything I wish I had known. I will tell you that Hill, that's the impression. Whether you can feel the entirety of the fabric, I could feel the welcome. I could feel the warmth of the people, even just in the visit. It's why I wanted to come, and the Hill delivers.
Amazing. Is there one particular memory you have that sticks out from this year?
Oh, there is one memory. I think sometimes the most impactful ones are the ones that don't feel like a big deal at the time, but you feel like are images that say so much about the place. And I remember there were two, actually, I would say. One was when we did convocation, and we were starting the year back in the space of the newly expanded and rededicated chapel. And it had been a year of back and forth to the CFTA, which was wonderful. But to be in that space and to start with those students in that space and to start as we wanted to go was really powerful. And to have everyone fit was just fitting. And another memory was also early in the fall when we had an evening game out at the football field. The lights were on, the kids were all out there. It was a Friday night, and everyone was there. And the game finished, and I was walking back from the far fields, and I walked into the quad, and it was packed. It was 9:30 at night, and there were so many people outside. And I remember thinking, this is really healthy and good, and we want to keep feeding that for the Hill community. Outdoor living, people being outside and being comfortable, like that's how you interact. That's where spirit is. That's how that communal feel can be. We're intentional about what we do in our schedule, with our architecture, but where the people fill that out and make that for themselves and carry that energy forward is amazing. And it's lovely to see that. It makes you feel like you're joining this parade of energy, which is wonderful.
I can picture what you're describing, and those are the memories that really stick with you.
Yeah.
If you could sum up this first year in one word or phrase, do you have one?
I would say energized.
Awesome.
Energized.
Great. Now, your husband, Mark Decanter, he's also a member of the faculty. Yep. How has he adjusted to life at the Hill?
Well, Mark has thrown himself in. He's doing whatever is needed, and we've had needs. He is teaching AP Bio and Advanced Environmental Science. He's dean on duty. He's taken over the girls' squash team after David Allen passed. We wanted to make sure that those girls had the support and that team had the attention it deserves. Virginia Yinger is also helping there. We advise. He's doing what we both have been doing for 31 years, which is just living the school life and being school people. He's an incredible which in all this.
Awesome.
There's also a track timer, which
Yes.
is a considerably more intricate set of responsibilities than one might think.
I should have led with that, because actually that can paralyze a community and a meet, and they haven't been.
Well, we're glad to hear it. No, Ari, as I mentioned, we've been fortunate to have you as a member of the Hill community since 2012. And prior, you were teaching at the Frederick Gunn School in Washington, Connecticut, where you're also an alum. And fun fact, as we know, Emily Gum from the class of 2001 at the Hill happens to be Gunn's head of school. And you worked as the associate director at Camp Seneca Lake for 8 summers. I'd love to just hear a bit about more, what do you really love about the boarding school and the residential school education?
Yeah, I appreciate the question, just because it's a pretty simple answer. I think it's a unique lifestyle to be in such a deliberate community, and I think we often have visitors on the campus, personal visitors, or of course admission visitors, and it's almost like landing on Mars to see a place that is so deliberate of living together and studying together and teaching together. Even though I've been on the faculty here for 13 years, I feel like I've been a student here for 13 years because I've been blessed to have so many good teachers around me, not just actual teachers, but the students also teach us every day. And Kathleen's done it longer than me. She would also say that we learn more from the students than the students might learn from us on plenty of occasions. So as I reflect back on my time at Hill and just reflect on those different environments, there are places where I've learned considerably more than where I feel like I've taught, honestly.
Yep.
Are there learnings or experiences from your years working with young people at Gun or in your years as a camp leader that you've found yourself bringing to the Hill?
Well, I think that the total experience that you have when you live where you study or you live where you teach or work, it changes the dynamic considerably, and it raises the ceiling both of what you can gain, but also of the emotion, of the passion that you experience in this setting. So I think what I've learned is that there's just a much higher ceiling for what the experience is. It's almost all I've ever known. I started going away to that same camp where everybody lives when I was 7 years old, and had that as a fundamental part of my upbringing, just like I've had at Hill for 13 years, where I feel like I've been raised in this environment as a teacher, but just really as a person more than anything else.
Do you find yourself looking at the Hill with fresh lenses this year in this new role that you've taken on?
Yeah, I think I do, Wallace. On one hand, I feel like it's not new because I've been teaching and coaching here, and I'm still fortunate to teach and coach. I'm still an advisor here, and of course still live on campus. So I feel like it's a healthy blend, just like it is for Kathleen and Mark. I mean, they may have been new to Hill last year, but they're not new to the lifestyle of being in these deliberate teaching and learning environments. So I feel like I still think of what I encounter as a teacher and coach the same way this year as associate head, but there's also a steep learning curve pretty much every hour of every day where you're looking at things from a new perspective. I was dean of students for 8 years, and seeing situations as they develop from a different perspective than even I had the last 8 years in that role. That is being a student. That's what we ask of students pretty much every hour of every day, is put yourself in somebody else's shoes to think about how they may be experiencing something, whatever it may be, and it'll help kind of reinforce what they themselves think of it as they're, going through whatever it is in the traditional classroom or the maybe broader classrooms of this campus and of the borough and of the country and the world.
I was fortunate to be back on campus in June for my 20th reunion. When I had a great turnout from my class, and we were really just remarking how impressed we were by everything we saw, and there were several students on campus doing tours and things of that nature, and just how incredible it is for students at the Hill today. Could you share some highlights of the past year from the classroom and beyond?
Do you want to go first?
Sure.
Just
some highlights, academic highlights.
Can we do like a different take? I forgot who's on. I think that there have been a number of highlights. I would say that the number one highlight that especially alumni would be excited to hear is kind of what Kathleen was describing, like as special of a night as that was with a night football game where it's a big rallying point, and the students certainly see it as really special, and the student athletes competing thought it was special too. It's almost like the normal moments, like today is a highlight because it's just a normal day where students are going to classes and going through the different joys and challenges of a regular day. And especially kind of the centerpiece of a regular day is probably the centerpiece of the alumni out there, which is going to that dining hall for seated lunch, whether you like the food that day or not, sitting at that table and kind of sharing that space that so many people have shared, for the last 174 years. I think that to me is the highlight. And I think that's what students, almost like what they describe to be like the monotony of especially like a winter day and it's cold outside. I think that's what they look back on, and even what the sixth formers are starting to really relish as particularly special as just the normal day. So I realized that wasn't a super glamorous answer.
Well, and I mean, and obviously the parts of the convocation and Lawrenceville Day and the week, the lead up and brooms and spoons, all those pieces are still happening. And one of the pieces I think Hill does really well, and this year has been an example of it, is bringing in a breadth of speakers to expose our students to all sorts of different thinking and conversation. In the lead up to the election, we were doing town meetings and civic engagement and how to read newspapers and how to do horizontal research. And all those pieces are important for just being an academician and civic engagement. But from George Will to Tarana Burke to Eric Liu and Max Stossel, we had and Dr. Washington, just here on Martin Luther King Day, all those pieces, and Temple Grandin, who spoke to us about, like, these are amazing, these are luminaries, these are really incredible people who our students have access to, both as CFTA big meeting pieces or McNally Room or Boucard, where they might meet one-on-one with someone from the Naval Academy to talk about, or the War College to talk about different pieces that are going on in life around the world. That is fascinating opportunities for Hill students and for Hill faculty, and those pieces are peppered throughout the year as well.
That's pretty incredible, and certainly the types of examples that you're only going to get in an education like
it's
this.
Amazing.
So pretty remarkable. How would you describe today's Hill student?
Well-rounded, passionate. They're game. Hill students are game. They'll try things. They'll do things. They'll lean in. They want to be proud of the school. They want to be a part of this proud tradition. I do think there is also a levity amongst the student bodies. There's joy, there's laughter. They're the best part of Hill.
Awesome. Now, Kathleen, I recently learned that the Hill is working on its next strategic plan, which will obviously inform, the future direction of the school and the strategic priorities. Can you just tell us a bit about this process?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And maybe I should back up, because we actually are doing 3 things, and they will all feed into the strategic plan and how we move forward. But the first piece is we have hired BB&B, which is our architects for our campus master plan. They're actually on campus today doing that work with trustees and students and faculty, and looking at the campus and how our architecture, looking at the utilities, looking at security, looking at our classroom spaces, all the different parts of it, with really a focus on residential. Hill has done incredible things. Our Ryan Library, we're sitting in here now. We've done these renovations. We've done the expansion of Alumni Chapel. We've done Milhauser Dining Room, ATHE Academic Center. But our next piece will need to be a focus on residential space, both for students and for faculty. So that campus master planning is happening. In addition, we are doing an accreditation. Every school has to go through an accreditation program. It's usually every 10 years. It's not whether or not Hill will get accredited. It's using that process to understand the pieces that, are we doing what we say we're doing well enough and as well as we think we're doing it? And are there places where we could hone ourselves more to deliver an even better product for our students? All of those mix in to inform the work of the strategic plan. In the strategic plan, we hired Tim Fish. He was the Chief Innovation Officer for NAIS, and he has been helping shepherd us through that process. We have a steering committee. Madison Benedum and John Millar, Ari and I and Tim are that committee. And then we work with a much larger strategic committee that's made up of faculty and additional trustees. We sent out that information this fall to everybody, students and parents and alums, asking them for feedback. And we'll be sending out more information and also asking for more feedback along the way, but people reach out as well. And we are going in actually tomorrow to our second retreat. And in that second retreat, we're working on our words of vision and how we're really working on talking about our priorities. The 3 priorities: campus master plan, campus, residential; second, financial sustainability, growth of the endowment as a part of that, focusing on financial aid and faculty compensation; And the last, which is taking the most work from that group, is the Hill experience. Really digging into that. That is us. That is our soul. And making sure that we are doing that through our architecture, through our programs, through our classes, and that we're all carrying that vision forward. So the timeline on that, all those pieces, campus master plan, accreditation, will be finishing, and probably it's a strategic plan in January of 2026. February of 2026 is when we would be finalizing and rolling that out. But those priorities are clear. It's just how we'll further articulate the vision of them.
Did I mention that 2026 is our 175th?
Oh, yeah.
Good timing.
Good
for all
timing.
those
Good
things.
timing.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
You indicated this kind of concept of the Hill experience. Can you just talk a bit more about your vision for that and what that means to you?
Yeah. Well, I think we need to look at all aspects of it. The academic day, the co-curriculars, the residential time, the engagement in Pottstown. We are the Pottstown community, how civic engagement plays to that. I think in looking at this is really figuring out what we're doubling down on and making sure that we are doing something in a way that it isn't just if we have 530 students that 25 experience this and 50 experience that in your 4 years at Hill that you have these experiences. And at the heart of it all has to be the relationships. It has to be with teachers, with classmates. That's what's gonna move with you beyond Hill. So this wouldn't be anything that's unrecognizable. I think it would be a little bit like the chapel expansion, where you're amplifying and making sure that you're highlighting and doubling down on the parts that are so important.
It's also really just great to hear that financial aid, access to the school, and faculty compensation will be big priorities within all of this. Do you have a North Star that you're working toward here, or can you just talk a bit more about that?
Well, I would say as far as right now this year our budget has been, and just to throw it out there, has been $8 million for financial aid for our student body, and we really pushed on our operating budget and increased that amount by about 12% to bring it up to 8-9. That's from our operating. So the most important part of Hill are the Hill students. So we need to make sure that we are attracting the best so that we can maintain this quality of student body that we already have. And that has been reflected in our alumni. That work has to get done, and we will need to raise more money because all schools are doing that work, and we're competing for great kids, and we want mission appropriate students. But that's an important piece in order to make sure that we are competitive and winning and matriculating those students.
I have no doubt the alumni tuning into this will be thrilled to hear that is such a priority. And what are you both most excited about? I mean, this all sounds really thrilling. Is there an element to the strategic plan and to this whole process that you all are most excited about?
Do you want to go?
Well, I think Kathleen touched on the part that excites me the most, which is the kind of the blend between how we stick to our identity in a very thoughtful way while exploring, frankly, beyond where we've been or where we're comfortable. And I think that the school, even as you walk around campus, is a really healthy balance between preservation of tradition and values, but also exploring beyond what we've done. And the chapel's a tremendous example of it, because if you walk into the chapel post-renovation, it's like walking into the dining hall post-renovation. Feels about the same. And yet on the day I was married in the chapel last June, it was 100 degrees, and luckily there was air conditioning that was only made possible because of that renovation. But there's bigger and frankly much more serious examples of where we need to explore. And I think going co-ed 27 years ago, 27 years ago now, in the late 90s, is a really important example of that. Obviously the school had not explored to have a student body that included girls to that point, but it was needed to grow the school. So what are those next opportunities to explore beyond our previous or current identity that are much more important than just adding air conditioning to physical spaces. So I think that's the part that excites me so much about the strategic plan, is that we're looking deep within to see where we really excel, where we need to continue excelling, but also areas for opportunity.
And I agree with everything Ari said, and I feel so strongly. Hill's got so many unique assets, and it is wreathed in tradition, but those traditions surround pieces of part of what we hold dear, our values. So they're productive traditions that allow us to further our sense of community. And there's a rootedness to Hill that is reflected in the architecture, that's reflected in our structure, in our academic dress, and a high expectations. There's an elevation of what we expect of ourselves and others that the Hill School allows for. But that rootedness also allows us to feel very firm in our stance so that we can lean forward into all the things that both the future will bring, but also that we are preparing our students for life beyond Hill. So that's brilliant. That's how we are. This rootedness that leans forward is a wonderful and exciting place to be.
Well, I'm certainly wishing you both luck as you are entrenched in this over the next months, year or so. But it's really exciting, and thrilled to hear about all the work that's being done for the future of our school. So switching gears a bit, teachers are an invaluable part of life, and the strength of our faculty certainly is a big part of what makes the Hill great. Several of my classmates and I are still, in touch with our teachers, our coaches today. And, Hill alumni are regularly sharing memories of, experiences that they had with those folks when they were on campus. Ari, last year I asked these questions of Kathleen, so now I'm going to ask you for the same ones. Can you tell us about one or two teachers, coaches, or mentors who influenced you over the years?
Yeah. First person who comes to mind is actually the person who interviewed me. You said I went to the Frederick Gunn School. The reason I went there is because the person who was just my admission interviewer that day, he just saw something in me that I definitely had not seen in myself to that point. And it's crazy. Like, I'm looking at the admission building right now, where those potential conversations to get the best students that we can find. It's interesting, the art of what that dynamic is like. So he became my advisor for the 3 years I was at the school, and still we spoke on the phone just last night. He was at the wedding and all this, so he's still such an important mentor to me today, in the way that I know the faculty have been for Hill students for as far back as the school has existed. My advisor. His name is Tommy Adams.
He might be dialing in today.
Yeah, I don't know, but he's the head of school at Grosse Pointe Academy in Michigan, for any Michiganers out there. But I actually, you said one or two, so I'll name another who our listeners will know, even though it wasn't in my own high school. Mark Nelson, who you might know out there, retired from many of his responsibilities at Hill last year after 40 plus years. He was an incredible mentor to me. He's still an incredible mentor to me now. And we coached together for the first few years that I was working here, and really helped me find my footing, not just at the Hill School, but as a teacher and as a professional educator that he, of course, did for so many students. But I think when you ask about teachers who are mentors, I come back to what I said earlier in our time today, which is that the teachers teach one another, even in informal environments, just like at buffet dinner tonight, or just like on the bench during a hockey game. And I think that type of impact is happening across the campus, not just teacher to student. We're all teachers and we're all students to each other. And I feel very blessed to have had so many examples. And I'll name David Allen too, who sadly we lost a couple months ago. He was my predecessor as Dean of Students, and an incredible, we spent 8 hours in a car together a few years ago going to a conference. And I think about that time we spent together almost every day these last few weeks, just those sort of informal lessons that I think any Hill student or any Hill teacher can relate to as they just reflect on their time here. So that those are a
Thank
few
you.
mentors.
Thank you for sharing those. And I'll say David Allen was my advisor and my squash coach, so
Oh.
I totally hear you on that. I think especially recently, you reflect a lot on some of those bus rides and those moments. From your viewpoint, and certainly those are three great examples that you just shared, are there any common characteristics that you've seen both, as a student, but also in your career that have made for the most impactful teachers?
Yeah, I really appreciate that question because I think Hill really strives to prioritize healthy relationships. I think Kathleen mentioned that earlier, and treating others with respect and expecting that respect from others, teacher to student, teacher to teacher, or just person to stranger. As you're, driving, on the highway and see somebody who needs help, I think that that is what those three mentors have in common. It's just like how to act and how to approach others, and even how to approach others when you don't like how they approached you. And I feel like that's something I really learned from David Allen, who, when you're dealing with students, you of course have challenging conversations with, any number of circumstances. And I really feel grateful for that. But I also feel like it's our responsibility as a community now to make sure we prioritize that over really anything else. Kathleen was actually at the lectern in the dining hall yesterday, quadrupling down on that lesson that matters more than any other, which is treating others with respect and expecting that from them and how they treat you as well.
That's great. The Atlantic magazine recently had an article about high school students heading to top tier colleges, but struggling to read a book just due to, challenges concentrating really, largely due to the smartphone. Can you share if this is at all a trend that you're seeing among Hill students?
Sure. Do you want to talk about our cell phone or do you want?
I'll start and maybe you can
Yeah.
add. The bell just rang.
We could bring some Hill students in too.
But they're walking out of classes, going to the dining hall, and it's a strange sight because those of you out there in the real world, which is most of you, as you see people walking places, you probably see them on their phones. That's something that we've really emphasized here this year, actually for the reasons I said a moment ago. It's one thing to talk about treating others with respect. It's quite another to prioritize that in culture. And in this culture, it's not easy, but we have really prioritized, if you're going to treat somebody with respect, then make sure you prioritize that person who's in front of you, not necessarily that person who's, not in front of you, that's on the other end of a phone or on social media or something to that effect. So kind of learning to healthily coexist with what's going on the cell phone versus those people who are in your immediate vicinity, which is community, I think is at least a start to how I would respond there. But Kathleen can please add.
Yeah. So, and I would also say, so this year we went to a piece where we said that during the academic day, so from 8:20 until 3:30, obviously the times can shift a little bit. The phones they're not visible. And that's important in those 5 minutes leading up to the start of class or walking between class, that it's an important part of how people interact with one another. I sent that note out to our families this summer to tell them this was happening, this is coming, this is why we're doing it. The research, it's clear the research is showing the less of that. It's not saying it can't have any, but the less of that, the healthier it is, both for your community and also your own individual health. And Ari was doing a presentation over family weekend, and he referenced it, and there was like spontaneous applause from our parents. Our parents generally want the phones away. They support us in that work. You can't see the way it's set up, but this room is set up for a conference that'll be from the 11 schools coming in for the dean's office to talk about what's going on. And their number one topic is the cell phone. And we're involving students in that conversation of what our policies are. There's obvious places, our dining hall, you don't see, there's no phones. Our chapel, you never see a phone. Our school meeting, there's not a phone. But it's in more of the spaces in between where we can take more probably control, and also perhaps at night. That is another time, or during study hall. These are times when they can be particularly disruptive or distracting. And it'll be an ongoing conversation, but it very much is on our mind. The students are not surprised. Many want us to come into that sphere and take, even though that not everyone, please, they're not also applauding the same way, but they get it and they want it in theory, even though that's hard to do and have it.
And I think it's hard for adults even too, frankly.
It is very hard for adults. And sometimes it's harder for adults than for students. So fair.
Now, as we all know, AI has also become quite ubiquitous. Similar to the launch of the internet, smartphones, social media, et cetera. It's a new thing to navigate in a community. How has AI been incorporated in the community, in the classroom, et cetera?
Sure, I'll start. So we developed a task force. Katie Hudak, who's our academic dean, leads that task force. They did work over this summer, starting through last year. Obviously, we were talking about it last year. People mostly were talking about ChatGPT. You start there, and then you start to really wade into the power of the water, which is grand. And Katie's group, first with faculty and staff, but then also incorporating students into that conversation, to doing open forums in the Writing Center to talk about the different tools that it is. So embracing the power as opposed to building walls against how this might affect student ownership of their work. Yes, we need to do that work, as we've always had to do that work, but there is a powerful river moving, and we need to be able to navigate that and use that to our advantage and teach our students how to use it in a way that also augments their work. So we push those pieces also out in our newsletters. We did our some of our faculty training. We incorporated into that, and each academic department took time and is taking time during this year to do a day of department-specific professional development around AI, so that what they're doing in math might be different from what they're doing in art, et cetera. And that's important. And we've been leaning on, Green. I want to say Nate Green, but I may have the wrong name. I might be confusing with an author. But Green, I think it is Nate Green, who's down at Sidwell Friends, has been a really important partner in that work, because we can do the work here, but the most powerful part is when you reach out to find out what other groups are doing and other educational spaces are doing. We even have one faculty member who is looking to get her master's degree in virtual analytics and AI, which I thought was fascinating. That there's already a master's in it when we're so new in the field of it, but I love that there's this energy around it.
That's great. Thanks, Kathleen. We're going to switch gears again. Willis Pierre was a beloved math teacher and campus photographer at the Hill for 32 years. And the Saturday night survey, which we're now going to do on a Wednesday, was an email Mr. Pierre sent to alumni, faculty, and friends at the Hill, really far and wide, each Saturday night. And the questions were really simple, and were really a way to build community among one another, identify common bonds, and really those bonds existed worldwide. So in the spirit of Mr. Pierre's Saturday night survey, I'd like to ask you both a few questions, just to help everyone get to know you a bit better. What show or podcast are you streaming right now?
Podcasts. I'm on a 740-day streak of Duolingo.
Okay.
I listen to Left, Right, and Center. That's my podcast that I find really interesting. I'm streaming Abbott Elementary. I love Shrinking. I am watching because I'm told to watch it, but I am enjoying it. And I always dip back into All Creatures Great and Small. I like it.
Follow-up question, Duolingo, which language?
Oh, German.
German, okay. All right.
Yeah.
And what about you? What are you streaming, show, podcast, really?
Well, The Bear, I would say is prominent. I actually just watched it a second time because it's just so deep and good. So I would say The Bear.
Awesome. It's a good one.
I guess I don't have a ton of time to watch.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I can't imagine why. No.
I didn't mean it like that. It's funny, we got these questions a couple days ago, and I feel like I should have done more thought.
No, this is great. And now follow up. What about what books are on your nightstand?
All parenting books.
Oh my gosh, that's right. Yes.
Yes.
I am. I have just finished The NVIDIA Way by Ty Kim, which is fascinating, and am almost done with The Path Lit by Lightning. I think it's about Jim Thorpe.
Oh yeah. All right.
Fascinated me.
Kathleen went to Jim Thorpe.
Visited Jim Thorpe, and I
last
was like, how is there a town called Jim Thorpe? And anyway,
It's actually where retired faculty member legend Jim Reifsnyder resides in retirement.
Oh, excellent.
I was gonna add another book that I've read a little of. It's quite long, but Kathleen mentioned Dr. Matt Washington was here last weekend.
Yes.
He wrote a book called The Jim Crow North, which is actually about the Pottstown in the 1950s and areas around civil rights in an area that doesn't get a lot of attention from that period of time. So it's a really interesting book about the local area.
How would you spend a typical Sunday afternoon?
Well, I'm in season right now. Actually, we play Lawrenceville today. That's why I'm wearing my Hill Lawrenceville tie. But we play a lot of games on Sundays in girls ice hockey. So this past Sunday afternoon was actually at the Frederick Gun School.
Okay.
Where we played and won.
Oh, well, congratulations.
Yeah, I like to have a cup of coffee. I end up doing a lot of work. I end up doing work on Sundays, but I go for a long walk with my husband and our dog. I try to do that every Sunday. And I actually, on Sunday nights, I join in there's a ice hockey league at Hill. That's area alums, area people, and Hill people. And I join in with that crew there. I'm appreciative of their community.
Oh, fun. What's the best place you've traveled in the last year?
Oh, I know. I'm going to go first.
Please.
Ireland.
Okay.
My husband and I went for our 27th wedding anniversary. I'm terrible at that. When Hill Co-Education, 26th wedding anniversary. It was amazing. I'd never been to Ireland, and it was a beautiful, beautiful country to visit.
We traveled around the world on our honeymoon last summer. So we went to Singapore, which is great. Bali, amazing. Maldives and Dubai.
I want to add something too. I also traveled for Hill. I'd never been to Korea. I got to go to Korea. That was so exciting. I also got to go to Beijing and Shanghai. That was an incredible experience, meeting Hill alums and Hill parents along the way.
Awesome. Do you have a favorite Hill tradition yet?
Oh my gosh. I love chapel. I love Lawrenceville Day. I love brooms and spoons. Those brooms and spoons, I really like that. I like all the traditions. Secret Santa. I love Secret Santa, which I don't think you can call a tradition, but it amazes me that 530 kids could engage in a gift exchange at seated lunch and have it work. It's magic.
Wow. What about you, Ari?
I think seated lunch is my favorite tradition.
What about your favorite spot on campus?
So I have a couple. I love the Headmaster's Garden, 19th class of 1971. That's beautiful. I love sitting there at night. That's my favorite. I also find myself climbing to the bell tower of the chapel. It's a little rickety, not the tower, but the ladder. The view from there is just stunning. But one of my favorite ways to look at Hill is from the far fields back. I like being up there by myself and looking back at the school.
One of the first times I ever met Kathleen, we went up there. It was before she had started, but after she'd been hired. That's the only time I've ever been up there. Actually.
The tower. I was like, the far fields? Yeah, that's right. I made you come up with me.
I actually like to stand on the path between upper school and 8th Academic Center, which is where middle school used to be.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the center of campus, but I think probably a lot of people think of it as that. And you'd be shocked for alumni out there. They started the tradition, maybe 20 years ago now, where they put the bricks of each name of each graduate. That path between upper school and the academic center is almost done. because there's just been, that many classes at this point. So we have to figure out in the strategic plan where the bricks will,
Yeah,
will go in
that's
a few years when we
yep,
run out of
that's a
space
hurdle.
on that very sacred path. I will say on that sacred path, like it's not built for this weather. So every time we have these stretches of snow and salt, the bricks start to pop out. So we actually like cement those bricks in every single May before
Yep.
commencement. Shelley, who's out there, is excellent at making sure that happens. So they always look like they've just been put in. Yeah.
That's great. Now, do you have a favorite off-campus spot in Pottstown or beyond?
Am I allowed to say on the thing that it's at the poorhouse across the street?
I do like the
Shout
poorhouse.
out to Rocky.
Shout out, yeah, I love the poorhouse. I really appreciate the Charlotte Street Coffee. But my place to walk is Edgewood Cemetery that abuts our property. I feel like I haven't done the day if I haven't gotten into the cemetery and do a walkthrough with my dog. I appreciate that groundedness.
All right, and the most hard-hitting question, what colors will you be wearing on Super Bowl Sunday?
Oh, right. Oh, well, green and black.
Just Hill colors. I like Hill football.
That's unfair.
Hill ties to both teams.
Yes,
so.
and go Bills too, but sorry, go Chiefs. Yeah,
I am from
Kansas
upstate
City
New York, so the Bills are like kind of.
Yeah. That was I will say we did have the sixth form over to Faroe on Sunday night to watch the Bills play the Chiefs that night.
Oh.
It was very fun to have that kind of spirit in the house on Sunday.
Okay. Now, Hill alumni take a ton of pride in our school. We're really loyal, and we know we're lucky to be part of something that's endured as long as the Hill has. You've gotten to know the Hill's constituency. How would you describe Hill alumni?
They're passionate. They are proud of this place, and they're proud of the legacy. They care about it, and they too are energized. It's always enjoyable meeting Hill alums. And I don't mean every story is perfect or Hill was perfect or anything like that. It's just there's a sense of pride of the association, and it helps. It's wonderful to hear everyone's Hill story. It's so important to hear everyone's Hill story.
Do you have any particular memories from the road? I know you've mentioned some of your travels that have stood out to you as you've met alumni across the world this year.
Well, I am fortunate to be able to do that kind of travel. I had a great visit out in Seattle with the Hill alums out there, and in San Francisco. I would just say that it was fascinating. I loved being in Seoul, Korea, and being with the alums and the parents in Seoul, Korea. There was an energy for the Hill when you're so far away, and the long relationship of those alums with the school made that visit, particularly special.
That's great. Most importantly, perhaps, just looking ahead, what can we as alumni do to best help advance the Hill and support both of you in the years ahead?
Yeah, engage with us. Participate, come to events, bring a friend, help us to find and introduce the school to great Hill potential students. Those pieces, sharing your story with prospective students and families is critical, but mostly engage with us, participate with us, write to us, give us a call. Those things, we also want, we would love it for participation in the Hill Fund. That would be fantastic. I know that the school is a winning team, and everyone is so proud to be on it. And I just want us to show our colors, and Hill School does that. But Hill alums showing up off campus and on campus is what I would want most.
Thanks, Kathleen. We will all do our part for sure.
Thank you.
Well, thank you both for giving me and our alumni your time today. It's really wonderful just to hear about all that's happening on this campus and beyond. And we're just so thrilled to see the school truly thrive under your combined leadership. And we're all really rooting for your success and excited to hear about all that unfolds in the time to come. So thank you both.
Thank you, Wallace. This is wonderful.
And thank you to all of our alumni who tuned in today, our alumni and friends. In the next several weeks, the Hill will be hosting alumni events in Boston, Dallas, Austin, Houston.
Yep.
So, do be checking the website for all of those details and keep an eye out for the January alumni newsletter, which will be dropping later this week. And also a big push to please save the date for reunion weekend, which is June 6th to the 8th, 2025. As always, all are invited, but we'll be honoring the classes that ended in a 0 and a 5, the 5s and the 0s reunion cycle. And of particular interest this year, Victoria Wyeth, who is the great-granddaughter of NC Wyeth, will be on campus to discuss the works of her family members. So I certainly hope I cross each of your paths in the year to come, and that we see you at a regional event or a campus alumni event very soon. Go Hill.
Go Hill.
Go ahead.